Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies. And today is the day I do my last season of Monk, which is season 8. And let's ignore Marco's disparaging remarks, although it turned out, even though we have our own likes and dislikes, that we both agreed, just it happens to be 31% of the episodes were above a C.
We're good. No, above a D. But there were no C episodes for Safi.
I was going to say I didn't have any C episodes,
So basically it's kind of like our version of Rotten Shit Tomatoes, because, nobody cares about that website anymore. It's like our version of that where we counted the amount of episodes we liked. We both only liked 5 out of 16. And so that's 31% consensus.
I tried to spread things out in terms of what the how when you do this, the way Marco he found some place where this is how you would rank things. You would have the S, which is kind of like superior, above everything. You have A, B, C, D, and F. And so we ranked the episodes. First we put the episodes that went into that category, like an F category or an S category. And then within that category of letter, you would put the one at the end would be the worst, and then you go all the way to the beginning, and then all the way to the S category. You would actually be working right to left and then up. So if you were going from last place to first place, which is what we do with everything anyway.
And you had 7 Fs.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I have 7 Fs.
4 Ds. And so I want people to take note of that, because remember, throughout this whole series, she has not given any Fs or any Ds. She might have given like 1 D, probably not. So this is actually very telling how bad this season really is, that she's like, no, I'm giving 4 Ds and 7 Fs. Like, that's pretty bad.
Plus, another thing that I do, and it's just because I have so many things going on, I don't have a perfect memory. I like to watch the episode twice. And so every night after or during dinner, I would watch an episode again. And Marco watched me watch an episode. And make comments, his own comments. And so it helped me to remember everything. So anyway,
the experience of doing that too was pretty funny, because the first watch through, Safi kind of pretended like everything was good, and it was kind of reminiscent of all her movie reviewing. And then the second watch around, she was like, ew, 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 just like a barrage of trash.
Well, and the other thing too, when you looked at this season, is now it won't apply to episode 1, but for the most part, the season starts, I'll say with episode 2, at a high and goes down to the bottom of the barrel by the end.
Yeah, like, it really feels like, now that we've watched it multiple times, it feels like it starts off like a really good Monk season, and then it just completely derails and goes downhill.
Well, it's like somebody has a full house of stuff, and then they start removing things.
Yeah.
And by the end, there's like a mattress on the floor, and there's not even a chest of drawers. There's like a suitcase, and you're living out of your suitcase, and you have a mattress on the floor, and a Doppet kit, which has all your soap and everything, and that's all you're left with. And that's what it. The thing is that added to the. It was just that everything seemed to be becoming bare bones.
Yeah.
In terms of everything, and I mean, it was like somebody just took all the meat off the bones, and it was just the bones, and so that's why it wasn't so good.
And we learned a little behind the scenes explanation, which I had never bothered to look up because, I just assumed that they ended it on their own free will, and that it was like, oh yeah, we want it to end because, but no, apparently by the end of the series, the network was so stupid that they were thinking that these episodes aren't worth the money, and we're paying too much to have these episodes made, and so we should just cancel the show now. Which is probably one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in television history. Like, this show is iconic. It's won like 1 million Emmys. It would win like an Emmy every single season.
Yeah,
and for the
remember.
The network, what is it, the USA Network?
Yeah.
They're so fucking retarded that they're like, oh, too much money.
I just don't understand that. I mean, that network especially doesn't really, it's not a winning place. They don't have a lot of winners there. They have staples and things people have seen before, but it's nothing special.
And we even realized that throughout the series, there was always this running joke where Monk wouldn't pay his assistant, or he would skimp on, like, there was this one episode where he gave her a bad check. That was the Voodoo episode.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, to us, we figured out it was a parallel to the network not paying and not wanting to pay and thinking everything is too expensive. And so we thought that was pretty weird.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if they didn't do that on purpose.
Pretty bad.
Okay, well, I better start because we have so many things to do. But, okay, well, first of all, we have 16 episodes, which every season had 16 episodes. So that was good, the consistency of that. And then, of course, we also had the song, which nobody likes,
Gross.
and I never liked. I always, when it says to cancel the intro, I always, as if I can, press the cancel intro button, so I won't have to hear that Randy Newman song.
That's what it sounds like.
I don't mind it for Toy Story because I thought it was very appropriate, but I don't want to hear the Toy Story song inserted into the Monk show. So, okay, my last bad on the F category, the F tier, that's what they call these categories. The very last episode is 14. So you see 14 is near the end. And that is Mr. Monk and the Badge. And I absolutely despised this episode. And what happens is he gets reinstated. And I hate to even, it's like jumping ahead, but this is what happens. He gets reinstated, which means he gets to go back to the police force as a detective, but not really. And he has to put up, number one, which they don't really talk a lot about. I think the psychiatrist or somebody like that brought that up, but nobody really talks about it, and I think it's a lot more important than in real life than it was made out to be in this episode. But first of all, he has to work for somebody else when he's been working on his own, with his own rules, his own hours, doing and his methodology, everything, and answering to no one, except if he didn't have permission to be there or something, he'd have to have permission, but whatever. Like when on these consoles, he was asked to be there by the captain and sometimes other people. And I have a cold, so sorry. And
of course, the captain wasn't going to hold his hand anymore.
And he said that too.
Just fucking stupid.
But anyway, when he gets into the department, he has to work with this hierarchy, and this code, a police code where, no policeman can do anything wrong, and if they do, you better have a very good reason, which is almost nothing, because they can get real stinky about it. And if there's a bad cop, there's a bad cop. It's just the way it is. If there's bad people, it's just human nature. There's bad people in every profession. Look at the priesthood. So anyway,
the pedo
it
would.
didn't work. And he was treated like a child, and he acted childish, and I thought they were really mean. I thought they were disrespectful, because he, as a consultant, he had solved more than 100 cases.
120.
120.
Something.
And almost it seemed, at least the way they presented it, they couldn't do anything without his help.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because he had what would you call it? He had an independent eye. And when you're in that police department, you're in that fold of hierarchy, and you can't really be independent. And that was part of the problem too. So anyway, I really hated this, because I just hated it. And he solves the case. And it's, what happens is, one of the cops, and he's a newbie, and he ends up getting killed. And so they get mad at him for saying that he had a part in his own death, because the guy he teamed up with to get this money killed him. So he solves the case, and they just were so totally disrespectful. I just couldn't stand it. So I put that's the very worst episode, because I just couldn't stand it, because he'd been all these years. You're talking about 8 seasons worth plus, which is 8 years worth plus, and then they all of a sudden, just because he joins the force, he has to listen to every little thing they say and act like and there's nothing left over, no respect, no knowledge of what he's done before. And they even act like if they did something and he didn't, that he was jealous of them, which he wasn't. He didn't care. He could care less.
Yeah.
So it was just
and
miserable.
You think about too, where were these people the whole time in the whole series? Like this little detective squad that we've never seen before. Where were they the whole series when they had all these cases to solve, and they just didn't really do anything? Monk had to do everything.
Right. Okay, I better keep going. Okay, my next worst episode is episode 13. And that is Mr. Monk is the Best Man.
Ugh.
Now, I really hated this episode, but sorry. I liked it. The part I liked about it was the villainess, because I thought she was really mean, and she was really a villain. I thought she was evil, because I talked about, well, I'll be talking about this other episode with a villain, and it's actually the first episode of the season. And this girl was a lot more believable as a villain. You rooted against her compared to the other one in the other episode, but I'll talk about that. And a really bad part about this episode was when Mr. Monk puts on a bachelor's party, and he does a terrible job. Gets everybody one beer. And then, just one.
Just one.
And then their entertainment for the evening, which usually is something a lot more real, was to watch a movie called Bachelor Party. And I don't think a bunch of grown men want to come over to somebody's house to watch a video or a DVD.
Well, not for a bachelor party.
No. And then he also got a pizza with crust and sauce, and I guess that's a thing right now, but it wasn't a thing back then. But I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
And it was also where only one person could get one piece of pizza for the whole party.
And these were adult men who eat more than, if this was children, maybe I could see it, but not the kind of pizza, but at least one piece per person, I could understand it. And you could see the men holding the pieces, and they were really small. That was weird. And it was just awful. And I was like, what could anybody have helped him with the party?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So I just didn't like it. And
the fact that the episode revolves around a wedding, and the wedding takes place like 2 seconds at the end of the episode.
Yeah, well, that was a part I liked too. It was on the beach, and they made a heart of red flowers. Could have been red roses. I couldn't tell. And in California, you can get any kind of flower, any kind of fruit, any kind of vegetable, because they're warm for so long in certain parts of it. So they have a good growing season.
Yeah, you can get a lot of fruits in California.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Safi?
That used to be a joke. Fruits and nuts.
No, I mean,
Marco. So anyway, they also, Randy, who always tries to play the guitar whenever he can, he played the wedding song on the guitar, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It wasn't I'd rather hear that than the intro song any day of the week. In fact, they could have played that with the episode. No,
they had to play yeah
in the beginning. So, okay, I better keep going. My next episode, of course, is episode 16. That is Mr. Monk in the End.
Part 2.
Part 2. So there's Mr. Monk in the End Part 1 and Part 2, and this is the ending episodes. That's next, and then the one before it, episode 15, is before that. Well, this is where you're at the point where you're in your room, and they've emptied out the whole building. All the furniture's gone. You're left with a mattress, just like I said, a doffet kit, and maybe a suitcase of clothing, and that's all you have left, and that's all that was left in these episodes. And in terms of the storyline, and he has been, I'll just say both of them, 16 and 15, which is...
Yeah, they are right next to each other for you.
Yeah, and they're F. I rank them in the F category. And what happens is Monk gets poisoned by, I think, like ricin, but they don't know where it's from. They can't tell whether he's eaten it, and that's what they're assuming. And the whole episode, about like 98%, they thought he consumed this somehow. And then what happened is, I guess they soaked his wipes in it somehow.
Yeah.
Poured it into the wipes.
He got it on his wipes.
Which he uses constantly. Natalie used a wipe for something, and she started getting very ill with the same types of symptoms, and he was about to die. They gave him 48 hours where he was living beyond 2 days plus beyond that. So he really thought he was going to die. And of course, the whole series talks about Trudy's death.
Yeah, his wife.
And how she died, and he's never been able to solve the mystery of her death. It could be he was just too close to it, because I think he might have been able to, but she made a videotape right before she died. And so she put in there where, if you're watching this, I'm dead. And so she begins to explain this stupid story about how, well, what was it, 10 years before she met Monk, which, my God.
No, it would have been 2 years, because
I was going to say,
Monk and her met in college.
I know, and that would be undergraduate. That's from 18 to 23.
So, like, it was very, very contrived. The whole episode was contrived. The fact that, basically it was a very anti-Monk part 1 and 2. Because they were saying, number one, he got poisoned because he's using his wipes all the time. So that's like, oh, he's bad for using his wipes. And then number two, he was so arrogant that he assumed that this Christmas gift from her was a watch, and his arrogance led him to not opening it for all these years, which is stupid to me because you'd think that even as like a detective, generally, that he would have opened the gift just to see if there was any sort of clue in it at all, even if it was on the watch or something. Like, there could have been some sort of clue regardless, not like even a videotape. The fact that though that she solved the case for him is just so fucking stupid.
Yeah, well, all the answers to her mystery of being dead, and there actually have two other deaths too. The person murdered 3 people, so he really was bad. But the person who played the villain was, I don't know his name, but he played Coach in the show Coach. He's a very likable. Everybody loves him. He's friendly, and he can, anybody can relate to him, and wrong person for the role, believe me.
Yeah, terrible casting.
And, but anyway, that was the whole clue to her. And he even says one tiny fragment of a thing. I've had the answer to this mystery the whole time. Because he wouldn't open the damn present. The only reason why he was opening it is because he was dying and he was going to be dead. So it all worked out, but it was very bare bones. And Randy leaves his job and moves to New Jersey to be the captain.
Yeah, he's going to be a police chief after this whole series where he is trash. He doesn't do anything right. He's a fool. And it's like, oh, suddenly there's a spot that's open. Just happens to be where Sharona lives.
Yeah.
And then he's going to be with her even though he never had any chemistry with her the whole series. It's just fucking terrible.
So
awful.
That was dumb. Okay.
And no, you're not done yet. Monk doesn't even solve anything the whole episode. He doesn't even do any crime solving. He doesn't even do what he does because he's just sick. And then you had this thing at the end where he finds out that Trudy had a daughter with the judge, and he gets like really creepily obsessed with her because
she's tons of pictures of her.
She's related to Trudy, and he's like, oh my god, she's Trudy's daughter. Like that. It's so weird. It is. It's really creepy.
It is, and I don't like that part of it at all.
And then
I hate it.
And the whole series ends with a second Randy Newman song, another piece of trash song.
Yeah, that we could have done without the Randy Newman song. It was kind of like a summary song of the whole series, and they showed,
I thought it was a fuck you.
They showed scenes from other episodes, just little bitty, and kind of put a bunch of clips together. Okay, so we still have 3 more episodes. So we're moving down the line from 16, 15, 14, 13. Now we're on number 12, I guess. I'm just looking at this differently. Okay, it's the 7th episode. And that's Mr. Monk and the Voodoo Curse.
Ugh.
This is a terrible episode. I love voodoo movies and TV shows about voodoo. Sorry. One such series and episodes had to do with American Horror Story. And Angela Bassett, who played like a voodoo princess who was going to live forever.
Why don't you dress up like that for Halloween?
I just thought it was just so good. She was so good, and her costume and her dress was perfect. But anyway, this was far from it. The only good thing about the episode is that Meatloaf, who passed away this past year, and he had a terrible temper problem, as we saw on The Apprentice a million years ago. I mean, screaming at the top of his lungs at other contestants. But in this show, he was really good. He was a really good actor. He had a lot of lines. I thought he did an excellent job.
He was the only good thing, and I would like to point out, this episode was when the show turned. this was when it made the trash turn to bad.
As the trash turn.
The train derailment.
Okay, my next episode in the F tier is, let's see, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. The 11th category, or 11th number, and it's the very first episode, which I just mentioned a while ago, because I talked about the villainous in terms of in relation to the best man episode. This was a favorite, Mr. Monk and his favorite show. We never heard about this show before this episode, and we never heard about this show after this episode.
Yeah.
And if it had really been his favorite show, I think they would have mentioned it a few more times.
I know.
And it was supposed to be kind of like a, what do you call it? It kind of a celebration of the Brady Bunch, although it wasn't called the Brady Bunch. They called it something else, and they had different kinds of characters. But I watched that show pretty much, and so the house they lived on was exactly like it. And then some of the things they said in the show, and so it was kind of a takeoff. That's the word I was looking for. But anyway, the actress in it, this little girl, was always getting into trouble, and they would say things like "shucky darn," which about made me want to vomit. And then Mr. Monk was actually, they showed him in the show, and he had an 80s outfit on and an 80s wig, and I almost barfed. It was just, ugh. But anyway, the villainess in this was the little girl all grown up. She'd written this book, and he had been in line like all night waiting to buy it, which is kind of reminiscent of back when the Harry Potter's books were coming out. My other son and I would go at midnight and go down to the bookstore and all these people would be there, like chaos.
Yeah, you're a pothead.
And go buy the latest book. So anyway, he was in line. They had their little chairs, or were they just standing there? Anyway, she was a stinker, and she was rude to everybody, but not really badly. She wasn't very convincing as in any way. She was very one-dimensional.
She's a very nice girl actress.
Yeah, she wasn't, I didn't consider her really. It was hard to believe that she was doing what she was doing. And she had won this award, but she'd won it by paying somebody off to fix the votes. And because she knew the show was going to be canceled, and she wanted to get an award, and she thought she'd never get one without the help of this guy. And my God, if every actor and actress did this, it was just dumb. I just didn't believe in the story, and like I said, the villainess was not convincing as evil at all.
No.
And she really wasn't convincing as good or bad, frankly.
Well, she's an okay actress. It's just she did not fit this part at all.
No.
And the whole episode's revolved around her, so it's pretty bad. And the episode itself is just, I thought it was like a D episode. I didn't think it was an F, but Safi, you really did not like that.
No, I just thought it was crap. Compared to the villainous in the Best Man episode, this woman was just, she was like milquetoast. I mean, she was nothing. So, okay, I've got to move on. So that was the very first episode of the season. That's why it was kind of weird, because, like I said, the trajectory of the quality of the episodes where the ones at the beginning were good, and then it went down steadily downhill. So it was weird how it started off with this, because even Marco said he ranked it as a D. So it just shows you something. It's just kind of weird.
Give it like a D plus or something.
Okay, my next episode in the F tier, this is my last episode in the F tier, is the 10th episode, and that is Mr. Monk and Sharona. And she comes back, and she her uncle died, and she's getting some money, or I don't know why she's there. She's supposed to be there for paperwork or something. And she I guess they're suing. He falls at this country club, and she's going to get money, and because it was an accident, it's loose stonework and the steps, which really isn't excusable as at a country club. And she wants to use this money to pay for her son's college.
And the whole thing is that, like, she's really money hungry. She's really, like, selfish and greedy. She's like a Shylock, but worse, because Shylock was cool. And, you know, it's almost like they're commenting on her in real life as an actress. And then they have the whole thing with her suddenly having a contrived romance with Randy. Just like suddenly the captain has this contrived romance with this boring woman who nobody cares about. You know, it's just terrible and contrived.
Yeah. So I didn't care for it.
And you know, you thought the thing in the closet was the worst thing ever. Talk about the closet, you know, where they had to go in the closet at the bad guy's house.
The bad guy was a very famous, at least at that time, soap opera guy. He's very good looking, and I mean, he's like a big leading man, and I'm not kidding. His name's Jack Davis or something like that. And I didn't even watch the soap opera, but he'd be on all the TV guides, he'd be in People magazine, so he was out there all the time. And what they did was they were in this closet. I think it was Natalie Monk and Sharona were in a closet talking about the case, and he opens the closet. I just thought that was so stupid.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. I don't even want to talk about it. He's so disgusting.
Because they forced him. He didn't even, he said, let's go outside and leave, and then I'll tell you what happened. And they're like, no.
Yeah, they had to go to the closet. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes.
Yeah, like you, Safi. You like being in the closet.
Okay, now I'm going to the D category. We're on episode 9, and this is Happy Birthday, Mr. Monk. And this was an episode I didn't like because Mr. Monk was childish. Totally childish. He had a birthday where they had a cowboy guy come in and do all these tricks, and the moment he left, all the kids left. And so he never would want to have a birthday party, because he thought if they have one for him, and he's a 50-year-old man or whatever, the same thing's going to happen. I'm like, oh, for heaven's sakes. And even Natalie, as a line, you know, she's saying, what are you doing? That's stupid. And he just, because they wanted to do a surprise party for him. And I kind of don't know how many times they had tried, maybe 4. It was their 4th time to get one together by pretending like they were being, Natalie was with them and they were being chased, and people were shooting, and they had to hide in this dumpster, and then bad guys told them to get out of the dumpster, and it was the captain, etc., and everybody, they were throwing him, he was having a party, but he thought they were throwing him a party in the mortuary, the morgue, where there was a crime victim, and the coroner was like, what are you doing? Because he would take a sheet off of dead body, oh, somebody hiding under there, Mr. Monk would. And then he'd open up one of those drawers and there's a dead body. Oh, somebody in there? No. And the coroner thought he was insane. And I thought he was too. Nobody's going to have a party in the morgue. It was just stupid. I hated it. Dumb episode. Okay, my next D episode is episode 5. And that is...
Mr. Monk takes a stand.
Okay, now the thing about this, and I'll have to look at my notes, and that is...
The lawyer.
They have a defense attorney who's really good, and he ends up making mincemeat out of Mr. Monk. And what I mean by that, he has a full mental breakdown on the stand, just about. And it was just so uncomfortable to watch. I couldn't stand it. And what happens is, because he does that, the murderer goes free. And then Monk ends up getting back at the defense attorney.
But we don't get to see it.
We just get to see the very tail tip end of it, and it's kind of unsatisfying, because while he did defeat the attempt, because he came back, because he found out the guy had murdered somebody else. He does get his he gets his due, but the thing is, we don't really get to see the whole thing play out. We just see the very end, and that was kind of unsatisfying.
Yeah, because they built up to it the whole episode.
Otherwise, it would have been a really good episode. It probably would have been in the at least a B or an A.
Yeah, for me, it would have been in the S tier, at the very top.
Yeah.
Of the whole series.
That's a shame. Okay, we have 2 more D's. We have episode 12, and that is
Mr. Monk Goes Camping.
Right. Now, the thing about okay, these next 2 episodes are animal episodes, and they're not complete D's, but they are D's, but I put them, the stories are weak. And the episode 12, he goes camping, which that is an anomaly. What would you, no, there's another word for that, which would never happen. And he goes there because Randy has a thing going where he's taking some kids camping. A special program where kids go camping with cop. And he does these things. He's a, quote, like a big brother. That had to do with the
lawyer
episode. And he was a big brother to a kid who he had robbed a store, but they accused him of killing the person there. Well, he didn't. The bad guy, that was the second murder that Monk got him on. And Randy is always involved in these social service projects. And so this is a social service project. Anyway, one of the kids that going with Randy camping is the son of a guy who says he doesn't think Monk should be reinstated because he's not worthy.
Yeah, there were 3 people voting, and 2 people said that he should, but then 1 didn't. Or I think, yeah. And so the 1 vote did not allow him to get back on the force again.
Right.
And so then this whole episode is just a contrivance so that he can impress that 1 guy, and then he'll vote yes.
Right. So, well, by being nice to his kid, and his kid will stick up for him.
It's the worst.
The kid is not a dummy, and he knows exactly what Monk is doing, calls him out constantly. And of course, when he sees a bear, he screams like a girl. Mr. Monk does. And the thing about these next 2 episodes, they're at the top of the D tier, but and the reason why I put them there is because of the animals. This one had a bear in it. It was very well trained. And the thing that pissed me off, though, about it was that I've never heard this in my entire life. Now, people went to the Capitol, brought bear spray, and bear spray is a serious thing. When you're camping and there's bears, you're supposed to have bear spray with you. And because it's something that'll help you to get away with your life. And the thing is, this boy says, oh, well, the thing is, you just talk to the bear and you say talk quietly and calmly and softly, and the bear will go away. I've never heard that in my entire life. You'd be dead before you say once upon a time.
Yeah, like he starts having like a monologue talking to the bear.
He tells him about the crime, his usual thing, and this is what happened. And so the bear kind of sits down and listens to the story, and it just never would happen.
To me, that was like if they did a kids Monk spin-off episode that could happen, like a Monk Jr. series.
But some people, I mean, I've seen some stuff on YouTube lately where people are playing with wild animals, and I don't like it. And I just read something about Yellowstone just yesterday or a day before, said the animals are getting a lot more aggressive because they've got these people. They get out of their cars and they try to go up to them, and they're pissed, and because I mean these bears are like, what are you doing? You know, and moose. You don't mess. You ask any Canadian, you don't mess with the moose.
And we just had a comedy movie where this guy was chased by a moose, and then the moose raped him. It was pretty hilarious.
Then there's another guy who, I guess he's by himself, and he is a hunter. Anyway, he's made friends with a coyote, a female coyote. Well, he has a pit bull. It was a puppy, and it's grown up, and he has a raccoon. And a lot of people like raccoons, and they carry rabies, and I just...
So do you.
So anyway, I didn't like this. It was total disinformation, and this could get somebody killed.
Why?
So I didn't like that. But I did like the trained bear. It was a pretty bear, and it did everything it was supposed to, and that's the best part of the episode. And the next episode is called episode 11, and this is the last of the D tier. It's Mr. Monk and the dog. And I'd have to say the dog is the star of the episode. You have a woman, she's a painter or some kind of artist, she gets killed, but it wasn't an intentional thing. The murderer, it was an accident. Maybe manslaughter, but maybe not even that. She fell and hit her head, and she started getting up, and then she passed out again. She probably had a brain hemorrhage. And her dog was left, and Mr. Monk started taking care of it. But the interesting part about this show was the mystery wasn't just that because she disappeared, nobody could find her. And the way he disposed of the body, that was a crime, because you're not supposed to mess with a corpse. That's called abuse of corpse, and it's some kind of criminal. We had a case here in the Dayton area years ago.
But what if her course consented?
Well,
That's what Ted Bundy would say.
That is in some kind of felony infraction on its own, abuse of corpse. But anyway, I don't know why he did that either, but the killer was going to kill the dog, and maybe Monk too. I don't know if he would have killed Monk, but he was going to kill the dog. But the dog he'd been with the girl and her dog, and then he had a dog of his own, which we don't find out until the end. The dog is a very special breed that doesn't have a tail. And so this dog is so sweet, it's so well trained. God, it's really well trained. And they pretend like it's having puppies. And guess what happens when it has puppies in Monk's apartment, of course? The puppies don't have tails. So it's kind of evidence to show that he's been with that woman, and the dogs got together. They shacked up. So anyway, those were the best parts of these two episodes, were the trained animals. I mean, this was the best dog. It was so well trained, and he gets to where he really likes having the dog, and the puppies he wants to keep, and then they end up giving them all away. And of course, that's another thing with this series. This whole thing every year is they get somebody who could be a good part of the show,
side character,
even a dog, and they get rid of it.
Yeah, like even a dog isn't safe. Like every single episode, oh look, here's a new character who could be really good in the show regularly. Oh no, bye.
Yeah. Okay, well, now we were going up, and we are going to the best 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes, the 31%. I have no C's, so I didn't put anything as an average episode because you can't, there's just no way you can do that. And this season, it's either good or it's bad, and that's just the truth. And even though those last two were they were pretty good because the animals were so well trained, especially the dog. The dog was the star of the show, the whole thing. They were D episodes, but now we're on B, the B tier, and the next episode I have is a good episode. Is episode 4. And
Mr. Monk is someone else,
right? And Mr. Monk has a doppelganger, and the doppelganger is a person who looks exactly like you but is evil. Or just, if you're evil, it would be really good. So Mr. Monk is good, so it's evil. So it's a mob hitman. And the mob hitman is so full of himself, he walks in front of a car and gets killed.
Yeah.
They show that right away, and you think, oh, that was Monk, because you don't know what's going on. Although he was walking, he had a long coat on, and Mr. Monk usually wears a regular short blazer. This was a long one, right? And very stylish. And because this a hitman he wore really nice clothes and jewelry, and he could afford it. And so anyway, Mr. Monk has to play him, and the reason I liked this so much, it was an interesting story. It was one you really could not figure out. I would never have figured this out. And that's one thing about, I've brought this up before. I have read a lot of books, listened to a lot of mysteries, and you can really pick out the answers, like, oh, okay, something happened here, and you can even figure out who did it pretty quickly. But this one was really hard to figure out. It doesn't even come out until the end. But I think he enjoyed, and I think you could tell that the actor Tony Shalhoub enjoyed playing this character because it was totally antithetical to his usual persona. He's a really smooth bad guy, and you could see a little bit of the monk coming out. He had to hide it, but.
And in fact, we read the actors' favorite episodes, which was kind of like tough to read because you have Randy who said the dentist episode was one of his favorites. Well, Tony Shalhoub, he said that this episode was one of his favorites, all-time favorites.
And you always hear about actors who say they like playing characters who are like totally different from what they are, especially bad guys.
Yeah, that's why it's called acting, is because you go on screen and you play someone who you aren't in real life.
Yeah, but
it's the whole point of things.
It was really nice that he was able to get to do this because it was just totally different from him, and it wasn't somebody who's mentally deranged and has a mental breakdown on the witness stand and all this. It was somebody a functioning adult in life. And I thought that was really good.
Yeah, you really didn't like the whole season how childish Monk acted.
No, I didn't.
He has really become very cartoonish and childish.
Yeah. Okay, my next episode in the B category is episode 8, and that is Mr. Monk Goes to Group Therapy. And this is Harold's last episode. And I'm not a real big fan of it. He has to, because of insurance purposes, he can't go have any more single office visits with his psychiatrist, but he can have group therapy visits. So he joins a group, and Harold's in the group. Of course, that's like oil and water, and they don't get along. But in the end, they come together, and they fight to escape this trunk, which is deranged person in their group who's killed the whole group practically, and trying to kill them, and trying to kill the psychiatrist because he told them about this woman, and
he was stalking her, and so then he killed her and he didn't want anyone from the group to connect it.
Right.
And there were two major flaws. Number one, we saw this character at a grocery store early in the episode, and so you knew, oh, that's going to be the killer.
Right.
And number two, Harold was not in the group, or Am Monk,
Right.
when he told this group about the stalking.
That's what I didn't understand.
They would not know.
I know. They wouldn't know anything about it. The only reason why Monk has any inclination, because it's a murder. These murders were happening of these group people, and he's a detective, and he was called there, and he said, oh, that person's in my group. Oh, that person's in my group. Oh, this person is, where is she? She's a member of our group. You know, that's the only, and because he's a detective, and he's having these cases come up, you know, because he's a detective, not because he was in the group.
And I like the episode now. I changed my mind about it. At first, I had it in the F tier because I thought, you know, this is Harold's last episode. This is trash. But now I think it's good. Also give it a B+.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about, the special thing I liked about was how Harold and Monk got together in the end, and they worked to escape this car trunk, and they ran into the psychiatrist's house because that's where the killer stopped, and break in there, hoping to, you know, save the psychiatrist. Well, he's fine. They're talking, and the bad guy's crying, which was stupid. So it was just stupid. So anyway, just that I didn't like that part. But anyway, it was a pretty good episode. It was a good Harold's last episode. So, okay, now we're going on to the very best episodes.
The A tier, not the S tier, the A tier.
I know, Marco. And the A tier is I only have one in there, and that's Mr. Monk and the Critic. That's the guy. The guy is this critic, and he's killed his girlfriend because he doesn't want his girlfriend at where he works, who is worth a lot more money and could get him a lot more places, to find out. And so he does this switcheroo where he switches his place of watching this play with the bathroom attendant, which is what they do in these high-priced places. They'll have an attendant in the bathroom, and they still do this. I've seen it with women's bathrooms.
Oh, I bet you have, Safi.
They just have, it's just really weird for me. I didn't get into it. But anyway, this guy who plays the bathroom attendant is the guy who played the doctor on Love Boat. So he was really, really good. And I liked that part. But it was a good episode. The mystery was good. It was hard to figure out. And this was a situation in which Natalie's daughter could play, could do a lot more with her acting and singing. So she sang a solo. She was really good.
Yeah.
And she also got to expand her acting skills because the critics said that what precipitated, the critics said she was terrible at her performance. Nobody liked it. They thought it was stupid. And her mother insisted, you know, there's no way this guy saw her. And then she paraded her out and had her sing a little bit, and everybody was mesmerized by her voice. And then, in order to even drive home the point, she had to act like the critic, after the show, tried to hit on her.
No, he tried to sexually assault her.
Yeah, and given her a drug, put a drug in her drink.
They made up this whole story.
And she acted.
Yeah, she put on a performance.
And I was like, what's going on? Why is her mother so calm?
He's never seen her before.
No, I've never seen this girl in my life. Well, if you didn't see her, how could you say she was a terrible actress?
Yeah.
Which means you weren't up there. Somebody else was. And that was the mystery, so it was really good. And I thought the daughter, by her being able to expand her skills or to show what she had to everybody else instead of just being the dutiful daughter of Natalie, I thought that was a good thing. Okay, I have two superior episodes.
Yeah, so this is really the top three. I mean, you just
Right.
did the top five consists of B, A, and S.
Right. The first one of the S tiers,
Number two is
it's Mr. Monk and the UFO.
yeah. You really like this one. I would also say that I changed my mind about it. I would also give it a B minus.
Marco didn't like it as much as I did, but I just thought it was hilarious. Mr. Monk, he sees this flying saucer, and Natalie saw it, and so did this. I think he worked at the hotel, and it was a flying saucer, and it really looked realistic, and it was a model, and I didn't know you could buy a model like that lit up and flew. I mean, lit up at night. Of course you can get make all kinds of planes and rockets and everything. But this, I've never seen this before. I thought it was really good. I don't know if this really exists or not. But and then he woke up the next morning and he opens the curtain to find these people standing in front of the window, about like on the sidewalk, looking into his window. And they're aliens. They're like these tall people, and they're all covered in metallic paint, and head to toe, all, face, ears, head, all the way. And you're like, my God, are there really aliens? And then he sits back down, and then he goes back and he opens it back up, and they're even closer to his window. And so it was hilarious. They thought he was an alien, and what happened was a girl got murdered, and for her money, it was a relative. In fact, you didn't even see the villain, hardly at all. The stars of the show were the sheriff, who was the tall guy on Criminal on Home Alone, and that movie about bikes and what is it? The University of Indiana.
The fuck?
Oh yeah, you haven't seen that. Is that Breaking Away? It was a long time ago, and he was really good. I should have Marco watch that movie. This is when he was really young, but it's the tall villain in the Home Alone, the goofy.
The tall villain.
He's very tall.
The tall villain.
And anyway, but he plays a sheriff. He does an excellent job. He's very fair, and he's a better sheriff than some of the other people they've had, where he isn't so full of himself, and he seems to get along with everybody. But this is so funny. I just laughed, and even thinking back about the show, I laugh.
Yeah, you'll watch this episode again.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we've talked about over and over, is how rewatchable something is adds to its value. Because if you don't really like something, you don't really want to watch it again. It's not that good. You have to admit it. So, okay, my favorite episode was called Mr. Monk and the Foreign Man. And the only criticism I have of this is the title. They wish they would have put Mr. Monk and the Nigerian. And this woman who's she's wearing some African themed clothing designs. She's shopping at this little mart on a corner, and she gets hit by a car, and the car runs, and it's a hit and run. And her husband comes all the way from Nigeria and sits on the corner and has like a little shrine to her, and he plays a flute. And Mr. Monk gets mad and says it's a hippie, and anyway, finds out that's his wife, and they team up together to solve the mystery of who did it. And Mr. Monk kind of absorbs this and thinks that he's solving his wife's case. But anyway, the team up of somebody from another country like that, as far away, as Nigeria, and I can relate they kind of exaggerate a little bit, but foreigners, and they've never been here, and they've never really heard a lot about Americans. They only have little images here and there, and they don't really know. They think everybody in America is rich. They don't think there's any black people here. I mean, I know this. I know this because I lived there, and they said these things. And if you have more than one bottle of shampoo, you're rich, and it's just all this mistaken stuff. And it was just it was just really good how they teamed up together, because they both had lost their wives, and it was funny and it was heartwarming, and it was just really good. It was just probably the best episode. Well, it is the best episode of the season, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Not of the series, though. I mean, there's other episodes I know you'll put above it, like The Three Pies.
Maybe. Oh, anyway. So my assessment of this season is a Wendy's baked potato. And it's probably an awful lot for a season, but for like the last 10 years, I've been eating so light. I weighed like 95 pounds. Because like there's just nothing I could eat that was good. And so I would eat a Wendy's baked potato for lunch, whenever we go to Wendy's, like twice a week. And then it just started recently to decline. And so you go there and it wasn't guaranteed to be good. And also I don't need that anymore, because I can just make a sandwich. I wouldn't touch bread. I didn't like bread. I didn't like sweets. And it didn't agree with me. It made me sick.
But now you eat sandwiches and ice cream.
Yeah, I eat sandwiches and ice cream. And I haven't made a sandwich, and if I did, I would be like that gagging. I'd make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I'd about gag.
And there's been times at Wendy's where, let's just talk about 2 times just to tell you guys what's up with the baked potato now. Number one, there was this time where they said they had a cheesy baked potato, but they only have one.
Right.
And they did not have any cheese. So what they did was they took beer cheese sauce and they put that on the potato, and then on top of that they put shredded cheese so that it would melt. And actually it was good. I liked it.
I wouldn't like that.
It was pretty good. And then the second time, or maybe multiple times, we got potatoes with mold on them.
Yeah, so
skin.
It's gone down.
Yeah.
Because I really depended on that, but I don't need to depend on that anymore. There was I could go to KFC. Now, as far as KFC is concerned, I still maintained its continuity and still good. I mean, just get a small 2-piece meal, period. And you get a drink and a side, which is mashed potatoes and gravy, and 2 pieces of chicken. That's good enough for me.
Or Skyline chili.
We don't go to Skyline Chili. That's a big thing here, but we don't. I'm not well, he might like it, but I'm not a native, and I've never liked it. Anyway, actually Marco is a native, because was brought up here. He's born and raised here.
Well, why don't you just express your disappointment?
The thing is about the cheesy baked potato, it's just gone down. It's not consistently good. And in fact, I've stopped ordering it. I'll just get a soda and let Marco get whatever. But anyway, I'm going to have to wrap this up very quickly.
Go ahead.
But anyway.
But you're disappointed. You've acted
it was
not
too
very
bad
mad.
that this was the last season. This was like one of my favorite shows. I really enjoyed it because it was so creative. I mean, you just can't, even at the worst of times, some of the creativity, like even with the dog and getting the dogs mating, and they have a dog, the baby has no tail, so then they know who the killer or the bad guy is, because he has a dog that doesn't have a tail, so you know that they've gotten together. I mean, just that, it's so basic, but it's very creative. So anyway, it was disappointing to have it come down to such a bare bones type of show where it's just like a skeleton with nothing on it. And like I said, the metaphor of being in a room and all the furniture's gone and you're down to a mattress on the floor and a suitcase and a doppet kit and you're out of there. That's how it was. So they are doing a movie now. I don't know about this writer's strike and
Movie sounds bad.
And the movie doesn't sound good.
It's going to be all about the stupid daughter.
And her getting married. Now, my God, it's been a decade.
Yeah, so
she's getting married after a decade?
She's almost like 40 or something.
Which, that's bizarre. I don't know. And I hope it's better than what it sounds.
I mean, that was 2009, so that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So she's 40. She is 40 now in real time. Getting married at 40.
Which, that can happen, but still, it's weird. So anyway, goodbye, everybody.